my name is Rachel Dobbs. It's just a short presentation about what I learned in digital creation this semester. I really enjoyed it. This was a lot of fun. It dovetails, yeah, right into what I'm learning about. I mean, what I do for my job, in digital projects, and it's what I'm really interested in. I want to be more of an archivist to begin with, so I learned a whole lot this semester and I really enjoyed it. So anyway, here we go. Um, First thing, of course, I learned was the OAIS reference model, which is the foundation of digital curation, which it's a standard generic model, which a lot of it's based on. There's creation of SIPs, submission information packages, which you take basically a digital object and you have some metadata attached, and you basically put it together for preservation, and submit it to a depository, a preservation depository, where they then ingest it, and that process requires validating, like, say, the file format, authenticating it, and other things have to be done, and then that creates an archival information package, and then that uh, this puts to a storage, to archival storage, and when they need to, if somebody asks for um, a file, if they want to go and see one, then they go and make a dissemination package with that. Now, another thing about these packages is that the metadata attached to it, of course, I will get into a little bit later, is it goes into there is, there's metadata related to the descriptive metadata, there's administrative, and there's a preservation level metadata, and such. And part of this whole preservation is the management of the bit stream, because that's what's basically in there, and it's to maintain that integrity. Another really cool thing I was able to learn about was digital archaeology, which I really loved. This whole, like, you know, taking an obsolete, floppy disk or a disk drive, and they're no longer working, but somehow being able to recover data from it using oftentimes sophisticated software. Um, yeah, when one typically goes and empties their recycling bin, they think, oh, it's gone, but it's not really gone. Yeah, there's these little byte clusters, and so some of this this sophisticated software, they're able to then try to recover some of that data. So that's pretty cool. And just getting back to the another thing about, like, another cool thing, like, in regards to managing, things like in the OEIS model, reference model, and managing archive, the digital archives is again the fixity checks or checksums for errors. That's done a lot in recovering, and but another thing I learned too was about migration and converting, a very important thing of converting file formats from one to another. And I'll get into that a little bit later as to some of the issues there as well, because um, there's data that doesn't get lost, or it becomes different. But here's, of course, dealing with the metadata in regards to the SIPs and APEs, is that the descriptive metadata it's the title of the file. It's things related to the author or whoever it is that owns it, that sort of thing. Um, the description of it, and so that's attached to the file. But then there's also the preservation part of it. Um, if it's an image, you're going to have image metadata on there, the EXIF that metadata, which is important for that. Um, you have vocabularies for like say a written document, a text document. Um, but you also have like in the preservation there, what type of software was used to create it, various metadata like that. That's important, especially for the preservation part of it. So you can know like what would need to be used to be able to create, to be able to run it, to be able to, because these are in bit streams, so to be able to, hey, be able to see this text document, be able to see this image, you need to know what was it created on. So that's part of it there too. And Met is basically and that's what the premise is, the preservation part of it. It's based on the OES reference model, but that's what is used for that. And then Met is basically part about the container. It's the container for that package, and it's put together and it's put in there. So another thing, again, I'm going back to, I think what I thought was the really coolest part of it, I thought was the whole thing about what to do about obsolete, software, hardware, and preserving that and preserving the data from that. And so you have various ways of doing that, because media does decay, as we know too well. It certainly does. Um, Media has a problem with that. Digital media does have a shorter lifespan, which is why we end up, replacing our hardware and software every 5-10 years. Not even that. It's like 3 to 5 years sometimes. So and there's various reasons for that. The older, like a computer or some or floppy disk drive or something like that gets, I mean, the harder it's to find parts for it. It's like, where can you find like a floppy disk drive much anymore, for instance? So those are harder to find, and um, so because of this obsolescence, um, it's hard, what to do about the data. So we have to find a way to go and be able to preserve that data, because these things do get obsolete pretty soon. Another issue, of course, is the proprietary software, like say Microsoft Word, any of the Microsoft products. They're licensed. You get subscriptions to them now. They're the sort that you the older versions might not run on the newer ones. They uh, and so it's if you put something on there, and it's so it becomes the point where some of their stuff's just not going to work after a while. So, and then there's the issue with the copyright, that because it is licensed, they might not let you actually preserve that. So we have to, find a way. That's why open source software, like say a PDF, go to the PDF format, is an open source one. So it can be used in various ones, like say you use an Adobe or you use an Adobe, um, even like what Microsoft has their own. um, but we could use that to preserve, say, a text document, because, again, that was an open source kind of format, the PDF format. The copyright issues do always come up on these things often, when it comes to preservation, because of like, what can we preserve? What are we allowed to do with that? Yeah, and it gets sticky. So, but the common preservation strategies, which I was able to find out about and learn, is again the migration being one of the major ones, where you basically, like, take a Word doc and migrate it to a PDF, or actually more in the case you migrate a Word doc into like an older Word doc from way back in the day, it's like somehow you're able to go and open up a Word doc from 95, and you're able to go and open up, you migrate it to, Microsoft, 365. That's a migration. There's going to be changes. There's going to be changes in like the formatting. The formatting is going to be different, or even migrating it even better, like from a Word Perfect to a Microsoft Word. There's going to be definitely changes in the format and in the fonts. So that's migration. So there's going to be some difference in that fundamental bedrock of it, but not in the content. Um, there's analog, there's backups, and that's another way to do it. And that's this like replication. Well, there's so you get backups of the disk drive. Is one. Bit level preservation, which talked about having durable media. Again, having I guess getting the latest media helps. And then there's replication, which is what I believe I put on another slide. Is the locks concept of basically making many different copies and putting them in different locations, so that if your computer completely goes kaput, you at least have your files like in an email or on the cloud or in another computer somewhere or on a flash drive another place. You have multiple places, and that's helpful for preservation as well. And then there's emulators, which we'll talk about a bit later. There's also, you could just print out some stuff if you can, but you can't if it's something like a video or it's a video game or a website is not going to print out. I mean, it's going to print out the text, but it's not going to print out everything else that a website has. So, and I was able to learn, like I said, the locks part. Emulators was another really cool thing I learned about. Was creating a home for the the digital object. Making basically trying to recreate the hardware and software of the digital object, or like say a legacy video game. If somebody wanted to make an emulator for Oregon Trail, which I think has been done, you know, you're recreating that hardware and software that was used for that. Now, even in doing that, there's still going to be differences because you're not going to be able to have the exact kind of original, but you'll be able to go and do it as much as you can. Um, and so that those are all things that I learned, and it was really awesome course. I'm glad I took it. Sorry, this went over a little bit, but yeah, and that was really all cool stuff. So there we go.